Well, apparently Keir Starmer has just dropped a massive bomb, for the Labour people that is, because whilst of course he is trying to woo Conservative voters over, which let's face it isn't really required, is it, with how Rishi is currently doing in the polls. But anyway, Keir Starmer thought he'd try and appease Conservative voters by praising Margaret Thatcher, which, to be honest, if you're a Labour voter, is the last thing you want your leader to say, isn't it? For many of them anyway, in my opinion, because the majority of Labour voters didn't exactly like her too much, if I remember rightly. But anyway, the article says that Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has written in praise of Margaret Thatcher as he attempts to woo Tory voters ahead of a general election widely expected apparently to take place in the next 6 months. Well, personally, I think, if anything, that will more than probably likely take place in November next year, because let's face it, that's bound to give Rishi more opportunity to get potential Tory voters on side, rather than them jumping ship to either Reform or worse, Labour, because let's face it, we don't really want Keir Starmer in, do we? Although at the moment, I don't really want Rishi in either, especially after what he did to Boris. But anyway, it continues, writing in the Daily Telegraph, a Conservative-leaning paper apparently, Starmer said that the former Prime Minister had sought to drag Britain out of its stupor by setting loose unnatural entrepreneurialism. He said that it was an example of a leader who made, wait for this, meaningful change in modern British politics by acting in service of the British people rather than dictating to them. Well, who knew Keir Starmer was a Thatcherite, eh? Maybe, just maybe, his voters might not be too happy with that, eh? The result apparently was a transformed country, but she remains a very controversial figure, particularly in parts of the country hardest hit by unemployment during the 80s, and some of which apparently are still recovering, especially in the previous mining towns, which, let's face it, are more than likely Labour voters, aren't they? So do you think there's ever such a teeny-weeny chance that Keir Starmer is taking it for granted that they'll just vote a Labour anyway, regardless of his comments? But let's face it, a former leader who they more than likely hated. But that's not all, because he's not only peed their voters off, but he's also peed off, wait for it, Scottish First Minister Hamza Youssef. He apparently said that what Thatcher did to mining and industrial communities was not entrepreneurialism, it was vandalism. And he also said that Starmer praising Thatcher is an insult to those communities in Scotland and across the UK who still bear the scars for her disastrous policies. Well, if anything, in my opinion, he's more than likely done Rishi a massive favour. And let's face it, it's bound to be in the doghouse more with his voters than I am with my girlfriend when I fart in bed and put the duvet over her head. But then, of course, my farts smell of roses, so don't know what she complains about, really.